He sees himself as a classic Russian hard nut. He became a close favorite of President Putin, famously running the catering for some of his more major events. And in establishing and overseeing and deploying the Wagner group, he has done things around the world which the Russian regime didn't want to use the Russian military for because it wasn't deniable and they might be held accountable.
Prigozhin is entirely in sympathy with what Putin wants to do to Ukraine. The argument between them, or rather between Putin and the Russian Ministry of Defense, is about how to do it, not why the war was started in the first place.
Я хотів розбирати ще, щоб доску сюди зашивати, сюди хотів. 30 минут один ящик розбирати. То, що там він добротно зроблений, добротно.
І дерево хороше.
І дерево, но воно пропитане чим-то, тому що я ж не їсть нічого. Ніяк не жучок, нічого не їсть.
Whatever happens after Vladimir Putin's humiliation at the hand of his former protege Yevgeny Prigozhin, the rest of the world now sees the Russian president as wounded. And that perception matters more than the power games now unfolding in Moscow. The US, Europe and China need to dust off their post-Putin plans. The best approach would be to expect the worst while preparing for the best. The worst would be a long-drawn battle of different clans fighting for power in Moscow. Chaos at the top would increase uncertainty over Russia's policy, both abroad and domestically. It's not clear, for example, that the vaguely liberal reformers who are still running the economy would be allowed to do so. That would have consequences on interest rates, the ruble, oil exports, and budget spending. On the diplomatic front, there would be new worries about who controls Russia's atomic weapons. And if hardliners win the day, they might want to increase hostilities in Ukraine, if only to try and show that Russia has not been weakened. But global powers should also prepare for the best. If any Russian government offers talks on ending the war, for example, they should be ready to gradually, step by step, ease the sanctions that have hit the country since 2014. Any leader in the Kremlin would have to be judged by his actions, not his words. But the rest of the world should be prepared to change its policy towards Russia if Russia itself changes.
Today, Kamala and I are making an equally historic investment to connect everyone in America to high-speed internet by an affordable high-speed internet by 2030.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Monday unveiled plans to spread some $42 billion across the nation's 50 states and territories to create universal access to high-speed broadband internet in the next 7 years.
It's the biggest investment in high-speed internet ever, because for today's economy to work for everyone, internet access is just as important as electricity was, or water, or other basic services.
Funding for the ambitious plan is authorized under a $1 trillion infrastructure law Biden signed in 2021. And the announcement is timed to kick off a tour highlighting the positive effects of Biden's agenda so far. as his 2024 re-election bid gears up.
Connecting everyone to America, in America, to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. It's a bold goal, but we're a great nation, especially one as vast and geographically diverse as ours. It's even bolder.
The 2024 election will in part be seen as a referendum on Biden's handling of the economy, and he is expected to tout legislative accomplishments on infrastructure, semiconductors, and green energy investments. Biden has seen record job creation and low unemployment, but elevated inflation and the knock-on effect of higher interest rates have stoked fears of a recession. The broadband plan's biggest beneficiaries in dollars will be Texas and California, receiving $3.1 billion and $1.9 billion respectively. The spending will be based on a newly released Federal Communications Commission coverage map that details gaps in access. The administration estimates there are some 8.5 million locations in the U.S. that lack access to broadband connections.
Honduras' military began taking control of the country's violent prisons on Monday, according to officials. The move comes after a gang dispute left 46 inmates dead at a women's detention center last week. The high-security Tamara prison shown here is one of 2 that military police now control.
Hemos iniciado con las requisas para poder...
Colonel Fernando Munoz told reporters that the weapons and ammo shown here were seized from only one area in the prison controlled by the Barrio 18 gang, and accounted for only 5% of total inspections. Although the official capacity of the prison is 2,500, more than 4,200 people are crammed into this facility. A United Nations report said that the country's 26 prisons are around 34% over capacity. Some on the streets of the capital told Reuters the military control doesn't go far enough to stop the violence.
I think that the new measures have to be put in place. First of all, the prisons have to be restructured. New jails have to be built. Also, to train and educate the staff working in the prisons, and a new army, because the police and the army are complicit in this violence.
The takeover is part of a push by leftist President Xiomara Castro to eliminate organized crime inside prisons, and a departure from her previous stance of demilitarization. The images resemble those from El Salvador earlier this year, where the government has beefed up prison security and locked up more than 62,000 alleged criminals in a crackdown on gangs.